All right, so let's go ahead and go through our diagram here. The first thing that's going to happen is the operator is going to make a code change. So this might be that they're defining their application set where they're going to deploy a web, API, payments, cache, and currency service. Then they're going to take that code and they're going to check that into their version control system, which in our case is GitHub. And GitHub is actually integrated with our Terraform cloud environment. And we're monitoring this specific repo in our Terraform cloud workspace. And that workspace is then going to plan and then apply. And those changes are going to end up happening on the Terraform agent, which is running in the on-prem data center. And it's going to go through and build out all these virtual machines required for this application to function. And when these virtual machines come online, they have an agent installed on them that checks into the Consul cluster. And this registers their IP address, their services that they're running, the ports that they're operating on. And once those register and they've passed their health checks, Consul Terraform Sync is sitting there monitoring these services to ensure that if they are healthy, an action will take place. And what Consul Terraform Sync is then going to do, it is going to then queue up a task inside of a workspace, so it's going to do another run, and it is going to then reach back out to that same agent cluster on-prem, and it is then going to go ahead and provision the NSX-T fabric in the configuration that's desired. Now let's go ahead and talk through what's happening inside of the actual Consul Terraform Sync task definition. So all of these services come online and they register and they're healthy. The Consul cluster then hands this information off the Consul Terraform Sync. And really what's happening is inside of the blue box there. So each service is getting its own layer 4 service inside of NSX-T provisioned based on the port that's presented to Consul by the service. Tags are being created inside of NSX-T based on the tags that are presented from the developer for the service. And a security group is being provisioned based on the application name currently. In a future release, this will be done via all of the tags that are being passed in through Consul. And then a rule is being created based on all of this criteria. So you're getting the service, the upstream, the downstream, the ports, and then the interdependencies. And then that's pushed to the NSX-T fabric. Let's take a look at vCenter. And inside of here, we have our Consul server, our Consul Terraform Sync server, and our Vault server. We also have a single template that we're going to leverage as a part of this deployment, which is based on Ubuntu 2004. And then we have our workloads folder here, which doesn't have anything in it yet. Inside of NSX-T, we're going to go ahead and go into inventory and then services. We can see in here that I just have that individual Consul service, which is just our port range for the ports that Consul is going to use. In groups, we just have the default groups that come with NSX-T. And we currently do not have any tags. Now under security and distributed firewall, we'll go into the application section. And we just have the default layer 3 section, which allows for DHCP and a default allow at the very bottom of the DFW. In the infrastructure section, we have one policy here that allows for ping. And then we have our generic infrastructure rules, which allows for NTP, DHCP, our custom Consul service, DNS, HTTP, SSH, and HTTPS. Here inside of Consul, we just have two individual nodes, which is Consul 01 and our Consul Terraform Sync server. All right, let's go ahead and go into VS Code. And we'll look at our module here. We're going to have one of these for each VM. And the thing that we really care about here is our demo VMs area. We're really showing that this is the name of the VM, the size of the disk, things like that. But also we're identifying the ports, the Consul data center, the upstream service that web is going to communicate with. So in this case, it's going to talk to API on port 9091 using Consul DNS. And then we have our downstream, which is who is actually talking to this web service. And this is just an empty quote. So this is going to be everyone. Let's take a look at API, because this one is also allowing for web to consume it. We can see here that this one is also consuming cache, payments, and currency. Let's go ahead and add our changes. We're going to go and commit this to GitHub with a message of deploy application, and we're going to push that. Now in the top right, you can see a plan is already queued. This is because Terraform Cloud in that specific workspace is integrated with that repo. And we'll go inside of here, make this half of our screen. We can see our commit message there with my username, the branch, and then the actual commit ID. And inside of this run, we can see here that there are 5 objects that are going to be created. We'll expand the plan back out. We're going to be creating API, a cache VM, a currency VM, payments, and a web VM. This looks good to me, so I'm going to go ahead and confirm this. And on the left-hand side, you can see that the virtual machines are now being provisioned in my vSphere environments, and they're all being cloned from that central template. I'm going to go ahead and speed the video up while we wait. All right, so now that those are powering on, we'll go ahead and we'll pull console back up, and we'll move our workspaces view over and filter it for this demo. And so as these VMs start to power on, we'll start noticing that in the top left-hand area, you'll start seeing them register themselves with the name of the virtual machine. They'll have services, IP address, and ports. So the apply has finally finished. They're starting to check in, and we'll notice here that the services aren't healthy, so they aren't registered as nodes that are available yet. And immediately in the bottom left, you'll see that Consul Terraform Sync is starting a plan. And that's because one of the services has registered as healthy already. The UI just hasn't reflected it yet. So let's go ahead and switch back over. And that first one it's going to be cache or payments. Let's go inside of here and take a look at what's actually going to be changed. And we'll split these. We're going to take a look at this plan here. We can see that API, cache, currency, and web security groups have been created. We modified the policy, and we created those services as part of that run. I'm going to go ahead and refresh the services view here. So now, we'll go into NXS-T, and we'll start taking a look at what changed within the environment. Make this full screen, and we'll go into our application view, and we're going to refresh this. And in here, you can see that we have a bunch of new rules. And the first one that I'm highlighting here is this web rule. Any objects can come in and talk to the destination of CTS web. And if we look at this, we can see that it contains Web 01 with this IP address, which is DHCP. This is the segment port that it's operating on, and here's our group definition. The virtual machine name contains web. We see here that we have custom service for web, which is port 9090. And let's go back into console real quick, and let's actually look at the web definition here. We can see there's 9090 there, but we can also see that there's a custom health check there for port 9090, and that's where we're getting that value from. Now at the top here, we can see that we also have these interdependent rules so that web can talk to API on its API port, and it's only applied to these two objects. And if I expand this out here, we can see that the names at the top are actually dynamic. So if the service is healthy, I'm actually changing that as well. And we're also setting them as a drop at the bottom of that section. Inside of the services here, we can see that we have all of our custom services from the console catalog that were defined. If we go into groups here, we can see that we have all of these custom groups. Again, let's expand web and look at the members and close that. And now let's go in and look at tags. We have our scopes defined, and these are actually assigned to our custom services. So just to make sure our deny is working, we're going to expand our general infrastructure policy here. I'm going to stop my original ping. I'm going to start it back up, and we're just going to go ahead and hit the web tier here. And we can see that we're getting replies. So now what we're going to do is we're actually going to disable this ICMP rule. We're going to publish this. And now our traffic has stopped. So it is hitting our deny inside of that section. So let's turn that back on. We're getting our traffic back. So now let's go ahead and go into our front end for this. And this is our curl response we would get, but let's switch over to the UI. And from here, we can see that we're hitting Web 01, hitting our middleware of API 01, which is reaching back to the rest of these other services. So what we want to do next is let's go ahead and take out the cache service. So I'm going to change this quantity from a 1 to a 0. I'm going to add that. And let's commit this change with remove cache. And we're going to go ahead and push that. And we'll go back to our workspace view for our virtual machines. We can see that our commit message is there. We're having a plan queued up. I'm going to go ahead and pull up VMware vSphere. I'm going to go ahead and speed the video up while we wait. Inside of this run, we can see here that it's going to destroy this one virtual machine, which looks fine to me. I'm going to go ahead and confirm this. In the bottom left-hand corner, you'll notice that the guest OS has started to shut down. And the second that that happened, Consul Terraform Sync started to plan because that application is no longer healthy. A change needs to occur to reflect the state. So if you look at services, the service is entirely deregistered and it's gone. The VM has been deleted. And then Consul Terraform Sync is now doing an execution based on this. So we see that we're going to be removing 2 objects and modifying 1. Let's go into here and actually see what's being changed. So the security group for cache was actually removed. The service for cache was removed, and we actually went through and modified the policy. And inside of NXS-T, we'll go ahead and make this full screen, go into the application view and refresh this and expand this back out. We can see that the cache rules are gone, but also it's not within that applied to field. And then if we refresh our fake service, now we notice the caching tier is gone because the upstream is missing. So our service is not totally healthy. So what happens if we just remove everything from this. So I'm going to go ahead and change all these ones to zeros. We don't need this application anymore. Let's say I've done my testing, everything works out just fine. I'm going to go ahead and add this. I'm going to commit this with a message of teardown, and we're going to go ahead and push that. And we'll go back to our workspace view here. We can see that the teardown message is there. We can see our branch and our commit message. And I'm going to go ahead and put CTS down here in the bottom right-hand corner. And so things are going to be changing in the top right, the top left, the bottom left, and the bottom right. So this is something where we'll have to kind of walk through. So the teardown here, we can see that we're going to go ahead and destroy 4 virtual machines, which are a part of our application set, which looks good. And we're going to go ahead and confirm this. In the bottom left, we'll notice that there's going to be a guest OS shutdown command issued when these VMs are being removed. So we can see the guest OS shutdowns have started to occur. And in the top left, the services are immediately unhealthy. And the VMs are deleted. Okay. In the bottom right, we can see that there are now plans taking place because the services state have changed. And Consul Terraform Sync has to remove the services because they're no longer healthy from the NSX-T fabric. And what we'll do is we'll wait a minute for this to occur, because sometimes what happens is as things are changed, we might only catch one service initially within that interval. So right here, this could be like web being removed. So we're going to wait for this apply to finish, and then the next run that takes place will end up taking the rest of the services with it. I'm going to go ahead and speed the video up while we wait. And now there we can see that there are 7 resources being removed. We'll go ahead and expand this out and move NSX-T to the right. We can see here that we removed all the security groups and the services and some of the policies. But let's look at that previous run that had some objects in it. We can see here that we removed web, and it modified that policy as a part of that. And refreshing NSX-T on the right, we'll see that our old policy is actually gone. And then once we go into inventory, we'll see that our services that were custom created as a part of this are now gone. The groups are no longer present. And the tags themselves, which were just scopes, are no longer present. So going back to our original diagram, this entire process that we just stepped through was really done by the developer. They pushed their code in the same method that they would with consuming public cloud platforms, but this was done in an on-prem fashion. There was no interaction from the networking teams, the compute teams, or the security teams. All the guardrails were really put in place by modules that those teams wrote, from the firewall modules, the networking modules, and the cloning modules that we consumed. So that way the developer was able to actively provision the workloads that they require to do their job with minimal friction. And this really enables them to work in multiple environments in a more agile manner.